All right, what's going on? What's going on, everyone? This is your professor, Dr. Jace, and welcome to. This is actually because of how the weeks are done in this class. Week 3, yes, week 3 until the middle of the week. Week 3 of your 7313 class, which is your collection development and collection management class. Dr. Jace has to start out by offering you all 2 apologies in this optional video. And from there, even though it's an optional video, I am going to recommend this one, at least for the 2 apologies. And after that, I'm just going to go over something that, again, is optional and is not related to, well, I shouldn't say not related to the class, but it is extra content. It is not something that you are going to necessarily see reflected in the readings, but it's something that I am offering just to get your thoughts going. Now, first of all, let's get into those 2 apologies. First of all, if you attended, so let me just show y'all actually what I'm talking about here. Okay. So what I had tried to do, and I apologize that I did not do this successfully, is, so I had actually tried to disable this synchronous, I tried to disable this synchronous link to Beth's session of the class. And I had tried to put in the announcements what the link for our session was. Now, unfortunately, and again, this is why Dr. Jace is apologizing. Unfortunately, what happened was I apparently did not disable that link, and people from my session attended Beth's course or attended her session, not mine. So what I want you all to know is that my links to my synced classes will be in the announcements, and I apologize for that. Beth puts them in the discussions. I will be putting them in the announcements, and I will make sure that that's clarified so that this doesn't happen again on the 19th, which is the next time we meet in person or meet in a synced session. It won't be in person, as you know. Yeah, so I apologize. If you did attend Beth's session of the class, Beth gave me those names, and you have been given full credit for attending the course. The second thing, or attending the session on the 5th. The second thing that Dr. Jace owes you all an apology for is I actually had to consult with Beth because I had confused myself. So what had happened, and Beth is an incredible teacher, by the way. So she and I just have different styles, but she is incredible, and I didn't pick up on her style quite as well as I should have. So this is what I need to just make clear. And I checked into Beth's section of the class just to make sure that I had it right. So I apologize again for this, and I commend the extra work that a lot of you did, because most of you, the majority of you, actually did more work than you had to. And Dr. Jace is sorry. He misunderstood what Beth was expecting, and that is my problem and not yours, because and not Beth's, because what I did, I went into Beth's class, as I said, and Beth's students did not have this misunderstanding. So this is entirely on me, and I apologize. But what happened was, so the way Beth has the course designed, and I will probably be changing this in future iterations, but the way Beth has this course designed, you actually only do written discussions on weeks 5, 7, 13, and 15. So most of you, again, I will just go back to this. First of all, let me just reiterate that there are only 4 required discussions in the discussion board in this class. There are now 5 that a lot of you are going to end up doing, and I apologize for that. But you only have to do the discussion board prompts in a written form on weeks 5, 7, 13, and 15. So Dr. Jace apologizes because, as you will see, most of you, the overwhelming majority of you, did discussion board prompts in week 2. And so the way that Beth really delivers the course, and I apologize, is that on the weeks that you don't have a synced meeting, on weeks that you do have a synced meeting, which is week 2, week 4, week 6, week 8, week 10, and week 12, you are not required to do discussion prompts. So basically what ended up happening is I got most of you, the overwhelming majority of you, to do work that you didn't have to do. And you all did a fantastic job. So that makes it an even bigger shame. Like, you all did a fantastic job with the stuff that you posted on the discussion boards, if you all posted to them. And for those of you who didn't, but who still made it to the sync session, you still got the credit. And those of you who didn't make it to the sync session, you got the full credit as well. But from now on, again, Dr. Jace is incredibly sorry for his mistake here. But from now on, the only discussion board prompts that you have to concern yourself with are weeks 5, week 7, week 13, and week 15. So this is a little different from how my courses are usually set up. And so that's where the confusion kind of came in. But if you let's get back. As long as you attend the synced meetings, you will get your 3 points for these 6 sessions for a total of 18 points. And we are just doing 5 sessions because October 31st has been canceled. And then on weeks 5, 7, 13, and 15, you only have 4 weeks where you have to do a written discussion board prompt, and that's for a total of 3 points. So Dr. Jace, again, is very, very sorry for that. Your understanding is very much appreciated. And like I said, everybody got the credit. So there were some people who did the discussion prompt in written form for week 2, but did not make it to the synced session. That's okay. You got the full credit because you still did the prompts. You did something. You did the written prompts, so you did something. So basically everyone received full credit for week 2, and I will have my act better together for the future. I apologize. I apologize deeply. Okay, so the next assignment that you have, aside from discussions, is going to be week 4, due September the 19th, which is a week from this coming Thursday. You will have to do the acquisitions quiz. So you can go ahead and take a look at that now, even though you don't have to make an attempt on it quite yet. And that's pretty much all there is to that. Be aware of these other assignments that are coming up, but this one is the only one that's coming up right now in September. Okay? So again, I apologize, but like I said, there are going to be growing pains, and all of you are actually doing fine in the class. There is nobody who is behind. So that is the good news. Now let's do just something to get those thought juices flowing, and then we will wrap up this optional video. Now, something that I just wanted to, again, just for the sake of getting the juices flowing, it is up to y'all whether or not y'all want to look at this or not. This is not in your assigned or optional readings for this week. It's just something that I kind of have up here because I felt I wanted to put it on here. Sue me. So Jessica Blaker is a Spanish services and collection development librarian, and she wrote last year what I thought was a pretty neat little blog post, Spanish language collection development, what to keep in mind when selecting. Now, I have not honestly looked at the demographic changes in the states that we primarily serve here at CISL, which would be Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska. I am from North Carolina. I lived in South Carolina for 7 years before moving here. And I will say that the demographic changes related to Spanish-speaking populations in the Carolinas has increased significantly. We have a lot of people in the Carolinas now who are first language Spanish speakers, and that would actually even include my younger brother, who is half Dominican, and he did not move to the United States until he was 13. I did not know about him until he was 13. So, you know, always good things to learn about your family, including that you have a younger brother that you never knew about, and that he is moving to your country and won't be able to speak to you when he gets here. But having said that, because my brother didn't know about his American heritage until he was 13 and moved here, you know, he considers himself a Dominicana, and he also he did not speak a lick of English when he first moved here. It took him about 2 years before he really started to be able to communicate effectively, and he still speaks mostly Spanish with his mother, who is my stepmom now, as well as with his wife, who is also Dominican, and his children, who were all born here in the United States, but grow up in a Spanish-speaking household. So these demographic changes, if they're not hitting the Midwest the way they hit the South, trust me, they're going to happen. And I don't want to get into the nuts and bolts about whether or not it's a good or a bad thing, not in today's political climate. I'm personally going to say I'm all for it. Apparently, from what I'm told, it's quite common in Europe and in Africa and in many parts of Asia for people to actually speak at least 2 languages. But here in the Western Hemisphere, in North America, it's not quite so common as what I'm told. Now, I've never been out of the United States, so I don't know if that is exactly true, but this was told to me by several people, including my brother, who is in the Air Force and has been stationed in Europe and in Asia. Anyway, having gotten into that, one little standout nugget that I really liked about this blog is that this paragraph here is very important. Often libraries do not have in-house staff with enough experience or language skill to make the best decisions. When you don't speak the language and the reviews are non-existent, how do you know what to buy? Simply filling your shelves with Spanish language materials does not guarantee success. I do know that from experience. And it doesn't mean that your materials will have appeal and circulate. So some things that Jessica is kind of recommending very quickly here. Know your patron base. And this is where, see, this is why Dr. Jace can't really get down with shy librarians that much, because you have to know your patron base. And sometimes I also, especially when dealing with migrant populations or with populations that maybe speak a first language other than English, or populations of people who were not born in the United States. Oftentimes, Oftentimes what you have to do is you have to be proactive. You have to leave the library if you want to serve these patrons, and hopefully you all do, because any library should be serving its patron base without shame and serving them to the best of the ability, regardless of what their first language is or anything of that nature. But sometimes knowing your patron base means that you have to go out in the community. And one thing that you may have to do if you're a public librarian is, yes, you may have to find Spanish language newspapers or organizations, civic organizations or political organizations within your community that primarily serve Spanish-speaking populations. And you might have to reach out to those folks and tell them about the library, what the library hopes to do, what the library can do for this particular patron population, and then find out and be willing to listen. But try to find out what are the needs of this population, what are some of the things that this population wants to see in the library. And oftentimes, because oftentimes one thing, and I also, by the way, I went to a high school that was I went to high school actually in Metro Richmond in Virginia, Meadowbrook High School, which at the time was the only high school in that area that had an ESL program in the area of Chesterfield County. They had an ESL program, and my high school was like, it was heavily people who were born in other nations. So having said that, I learned actually even in high school that a lot of people from Central and South America, not that I'm trying to generalize, but a lot of people in Latin America are very distrustful of government because there is a lot of government corruption in those nations. So it doesn't always work to just go to individual patrons and start asking them questions, because they may not trust you and they may not know what you're up to because you work for the local government. But the way to make those inroads is with those political organizations and with those community organizations and civic organizations that are established to assist that population. So know your patron base is very important. There are a lot of Spanish translations for popular English titles, and it would be very good for you to have those. So, be mindful of that. But then also it is, of course, also good to have things that are native Spanish, things that might have been produced, things that are not just Anglo and then translated, but also things that that originated maybe in Central or South America or in Latin America and were produced for that particular population. It's good to have those things as well. And then graphic novels, those are particularly important for young people and young people who are K-12, and even adults though, but young people who are K-12. It's very important to have those graphic novels for them. Those can be very useful for those who are attempting to improve their English skills if they are not native English speakers. And then just know that like Jessica mentions here, be aware of what is still appropriate or inappropriate within an American market. So a lot of times there may be things that are acceptable in other nations that are not acceptable in the United States, and you just want to still make sure that the things you have are appropriate for your American audience. So, and it's kind of a fine line to walk. There are certainly also things that are appropriate here in America that are not, or here in the United States, that are not appropriate in other places in the Americas. So there's a lot of balancing that you have to do. It's kind of a tightrope that you have to walk, but you can do it. And there is a community of librarians who are around and wishing to help you. So having said that, let's end this before the 21st minute. I am out. Thank you.